Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Christian from the Astoria Bookshop. Uh, and so thank you for coming to Stay Home with Authors event. I am the events coordinator at Astoria Bookshop, so I usually kind of plan everything from behind the scenes, but I'm actually moderating this for the first time, so it should be fun. We have today Zoraida Córdova, one of my favorite authors
Yay!
ever. And she's also from Queens, which is also great. We love our Queens authors.
I love Queens.
And so before we begin, I'm just going to say thank you for everyone supporting us through this time. I know everything's been very crazy and hectic, and we appreciate all the support that we've been getting for the past few weeks. If you would like to support us and by buying books, you can definitely purchase through our website at astoriabookshop.com and have them shipped out to you at a later date, or do curbside pickup, which we're starting back up again, and all that information is on our website. If you want your books a little bit sooner rather than later, we do have a bookshop.org web page front web store rather, that you can buy books from there, especially Zoraida's books, which we have a whole list of on there, and any other events that we're having this month. So yeah, before we begin, I'm going to introduce Zoraida with her bio. So Zoraida Córdova is the author of 9 fantasy novels for kids and teens, most recently the award-winning Brooklyn Brujas series, Incendiary, and Star Wars: A Crash of Fate. Her short fiction has appeared in the New York Times bestselling anthology, Star Wars from a Certain Point of View, in 15 Stories About Immigration and Finding Home, and Toil Trouble, 15 Tales of Women in Witchcraft. She's the co-editor of Vampires Never Get Old, 11 Tales with Fresh Fight. Her debut middle grade novel is The Way to Rio Luna. She is the co-host of the podcast Deadline City with Dhonielle Clayton. Zoraida was born in Ecuador and raised in Queens, New York. When she isn't working on her next novel, she's planning on a new adventure. Thank you for being here, Zoraida.
Hi.
I really appreciate it.
I can't hear you, Christian, anymore.
Oh no. No. Could you hear me now?
No.
Hold on.
Maybe you should take off your headphones.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Okay, let me...
Give me 1 second.
Give me 1 second.
I have set everything to basic Mac, my Mac software. Hold on.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Let me... This is great. Let me...
I think that, hold on. Should we try it again? And now I'm by myself. Hi, guys. I'm Zoraida Córdova, and Christian is returning.
Can you hear me now?
Nope. It might be me. Give me 1 second.
Give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. I don't know why.
Okay.
I've used StreamYard a few times throughout since I've been switching all of my book events to the digital format.
Yeah.
And I think that Venus is in retrograde today, so I feel like I blame it on Aphrodite. Probably shouldn't say that out loud before I get a curse from the gods. But yeah, now we can hear each other. Thank you so much for having me. I love Astoria Bookshop. I used to live around the corner. Now I no longer live in Queens, but I'm just so happy to support all of the local bookstores.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we really appreciate the support from local authors and authors in general. So yeah, so your latest book, Incendiary, it's which I have right here.
Yay!
Um, tell us a little bit about it, because I know some people might not know about it, like I do, or a lot of your fans do. So if you want to talk about it a little bit.
So Incendiary is the first book in a duology. It is about a group of people called the Moria. They have these magical powers. It's sensory magic, so it's memory magic, illusion magic, mind magic. They are in the kingdom of Puerto Leones after the fall of their own kingdom. And the book follows one of the magic users, Renata, who she was used as a weapon by the
Okay. Sorry about that. We're just having some audio issues. Um, thank you for being patient, everyone. We really appreciate it. Let me just get.
Okay. I
Hello.
don't know why it kicked me off.
Venus is really in retrograde right now.
StreamYard really hates me now today. I even have my good luck porg, Maluma. So I feel like from now on, StreamYard needs to behave. Okay, I was telling you about Incendiary. Incendiary follows Renata. She was used as a weapon by the kingdom to steal memories from the king's enemies. 10 years later, she's 17. She's part of a rebel group that's trying to take down the throne. And her commander and the love of her life gets taken by the evil prince of the kingdom. I can't say this with a straight face anymore because I love all of these characters so much. And so she infiltrates the palace in order to go save him. And she has to return to the place where she was used as a child weapon, and she was used for her magic. She caused so much hurt, but is it any of it really her fault? Because she was a child, she was 7 to 10 years old. So what is the process of forgiveness, and what is the process of making amends and atoning for the things that you did, right?
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that I wanted to explore in that book. And it is so it's the first book in a duology, so there's 2 books. And I'm really excited to be able to talk about it.
Yeah, no, I started reading some of it, and it's like really great. I mean, all your work is great to me. But I know you've published like 13 novels across like middle grade, young adult, and like I know you did some adult under and romance.
Yeah.
So like I feel like you're the video of Lady Gaga where she's like plain, another club, but like with writing and publishing all these novels. How do you like keep up with doing that across all these different markets and kind of just like keep going and like doing hit after hit after hit?
So it's interesting because I never thought that I was going to be I never thought I was going to be a romance writer. It was a genre that I loved, but I was always that teenager that was like, I loved reading about love, but because I had never been in love and hadn't had those kinds of relationships, I just didn't know how to write about them. Now there's something. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think it's working now.
Okay. There's something about romance novels that is both like an escape and also really, really healing to be able to know that you're getting a happily ever after at the end of this book. And so that really attracted me to writing romance novels in 2016. I don't know how I actually keep my schedule. I have a very detailed, very convoluted journal. And I think that my process has become just figuring out how to schedule my entire life based on when my deadline is due, right? So if I have 3 deadlines. I had 5 deadlines in 2017. And every single month I had a book due. And so my entire life just revolved around getting that book into production. And then as soon as I was finished, I would turn in the next book. And after that, and so then the month was over, you know, and it sort of repeats. It's a very unhealthy cycle of having things due. I just turned in Incendiary 2. I'm so proud of myself. I didn't accidentally say the title. And so because I just turned it in, I saw the pattern that January 16th, I had a book due. February 16th, I had a book due. March and April. So May is the first month that I don't actually have anything due.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty intense. Wow. No sound. Okay, good. Okay. That's wow. Like, I don't know. That's like superhuman, honestly. That like you just can keep going like that.
I don't have a healthy work-life balance, so that's a problem. But one day I will find that. I'll just like get away for it and then not write for like 2 years.
That'd be a nice break. So I know, like, what is your typical the typical writing process for you? Like, do you just sit down and write, or do you like plan it? Like, what is it that you do to like really get into the groove of writing?
I plan out my days that when I know I'm going to write. I start off with an ideal word count in mind, right?
Okay.
So I am the kind of writer that needs to plan out before I actually get in there. It didn't used to be like this. When I first started writing when I published my first book in 2012, I was a pantser writer, right? Like I just sat down and I wrote. And that was to my detriment because I made a lot of time mistakes in my first trilogy. You can't, I mean, I don't think you can tell, but I can tell because the entire trilogy takes place over the course of 14 days. And the last chapter takes place over the course of 6 months. So that was like my mistake when it came to figuring out timelines. The reason why I now am so organized, I mean, it's chaotic organization, to be honest, because my process is very anxious. And the entire time I think that my book sucks and that the pieces are in the wrong place. But I sit down, I think I'm going to write 2,000 words today. And I write out by hand the scene first. And so the scene happens to me, or the scene comes to me as like I envision it first.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a very visual writer. I know some writers don't see faces and don't see setting, which I think is like strange because I feel like to me it's a movie that's playing out in my head.
Yeah.
Right? With actors.
I feel the same way.
Yeah. And so I write out what's gonna happen and like a paragraph or two, right? This is what's like they're gonna walk in here, they're gonna fight, they're gonna XYZ. And that's how I do the bones. So when I do revisions, I go back to the same chapter and I'm like, okay, well, what did I miss, right? What are these characters actually fighting about? What in the room is being used? what in the room is going to be, or what in their conversation is going to be necessary to move us along to the next plot, right? So the difference between my first draft and then my later draft is just the amount of information that I keep putting in.
And I'm guessing like it's helpful to be like very detailed and thorough, because it just kind of helps like you're like being anxious about it, or is it just because you just want to like have everything in front of you?
I think it's because I don't know. Sometimes I don't know what I'm trying to say, and you will this is the problem. I mean, it's not a problem, it's a blessing, right? Having a book deal is a blessing.
Yeah.
But the problem with the downside with writing a book for contract is that you don't always know what that book is going to be about until later drafts. And sometimes I outline over and over again because it is my anxiety trying to tell me that I'm nervous about.
Oh no. Again, sorry about the technical difficulties. Again, thank you for being so patient with us. Oh, also, if anybody has any questions during this whole broadcast, please ask them in the comments, and both of us will see it, and we will get to them at the end.
Hello?
Hello, I can hear you.
I don't know what's happening.
It's, we're just gonna go with the flow, and it's totally fine. We can't really do anything about it, I guess.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what on my computer is doing this, and all of my programs are shut down except for this one. So, we're just gonna go with the internet hates us.
Yeah, we're just gonna go with it. So I guess I'll go to my next question. So I know just from interacting with you and also just being on like social media and seeing your tweets and all of your advice, you're like pretty transparent about like the publishing industry in general, and like about like giving advice, and you have Deadline City with Dhonielle Clayton, and you do so many things to kind of give all of these resources to like upcoming writers. Why do you feel that's important in all of this, like, to you?
I think it's important to be able to share our experiences with people who are trying to break into the industry, because the publishing industry feels so enigmatic and so untouchable, especially for people of color, right? It feels like this thing that you're lucky to be a part of. But at the same time, publishing should just be treated like any other industry. And the thing about how we enter an entire career is different for everybody, because we all come from different places and we all have different understandings of like how to write a book and how to get a book published. But all I can do is give somebody my experience. And I will say that my experience has been a series of very fortunate events, because I went from an internship at a literary agency to having an agent that way, to what else? What did I do? to working with another agent. And so from the age of 18. And so I came in through publishing through like a back door or back channel.
There we go.
Yeah. So I was very lucky.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to me. And I hope that like people that are coming in will understand that.
Yeah. I'm sure they do. And like all the advice that I've seen you give is like really great, and a lot of it is some that like the advice I don't really hear often from people when people ask these questions and they're just like kind of giving like a very general answer. So I'm sure a lot of people do appreciate it.
I mean, if I ever talk about it, I'm sure they don't appreciate it. But listen, you have to be good to your authors.
Yeah.
I mean, I do believe in being professional and just doing the professional thing, which is telling the truth, but also understanding that everyone is trying to do their best. And hopefully, if I have like any bad experience that I'll have, I will always give the positive experiences as well. So
yeah, that's all you can really do. So I know that you had the Vicious Deep series, which is Mermaids in Brooklyn. And you're about to finish up the Brooklyn Brujas series too. How does it feel to finish the trilogy again?
You know, this time I'm really sad.
I am too.
I was sad with the Vicious Deep trilogy, but I was also relieved because I was ready to move on. And also, you know, those books, those were my first books. I wrote the first book when I was 18, 19. And I got it published 5 years later. And so it was definitely a book that I always wanted to write. Hi, Shelley. But I needed it to be over because I was done with that part of my life, right? It's like my white merman got his time in the sunshine, and now it was time for my Brooklyn Brujas to live. There are just many reasons why I wish that I could do 2 more books in the Brooklyn Brujas series. There's a reason it's not called a trilogy. But I think that my publisher and I might not see eye to eye anymore. But who knows? Like, I would love to tell the story of Nova, Santiago, or some other characters that live in the world. I can't.
Sorry about that. Just StreamYard really hates us today. There we go. Let's see.
Okay.
There we go.
You see, everyone else can hear us, but you and I can't hear each other. That's the only downside.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm gonna try this on my cell phone and just hold up my cell phone like a noob.
As long as it works, you know.
Yeah, because I want to talk more about the Brooklyn Brujas series.
Yeah.
And
let's see.
I'm on.
Should I add? I guess yeah, because I have to add it.
No, you should just.
Oh wait. Okay. Hold on. How do I do this? Okay.
Hello.
Does that work? Okay.
Yeah, this definitely works.
Yeah, you can talk more about the Brooklyn Brujas series.
So the Brooklyn Brujas series is a book that I've always wanted to write. It is the series of my complete heart, right? I started writing it when I said to myself, I wanted to write a book about sort of like Charmed, but with Latina witches. So where do Latina witches come from? Who are these people holding this magic? Who do we see wielding power in these stories? And that was going to be Labyrinth Lost. And for a long time, I didn't think that I could write it.
And the reason I didn't think I could write it was because of all the rejections that I had had earlier on in my career. And that's not to say that I didn't learn from those rejections, and that's not to say that they shouldn't have happened, because honestly, the books that I was submitting were not great. But everything that I was doing was leading up to the moment that I could write Labyrinth Lost. And I do hope that eventually I'll go back to it and finish some books. It's still under development at Paramount, and I have a producer, and I have a writer, and I can't tell you who these people are, but it's very exciting, and they're both Latinas. So
Listen, I'm already a #1 stan, so I'm ready to stan it. I'm ready to talk about it. As soon as you let us know.
Yeah.
You already have a Brooklyn Brujas hive, so
I love it so much. But yeah, no, I mean, it's still, I never expected that this book would be picked up, for a studio film, but it still looks like it's happening. Like the other day I was like, oh, the option is about to expire, and we just renewed it. And like, I wish I could tell. I'll tell you in secret who my producer is later. But
yeah.
But it's it's something that I think that we are ready to see, right? We're ready to see Latina magic. We're ready to see Latino ghost stories and Latinx protagonists, all of it. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
I'm super excited for you.
Thank you.
So you also do anthologies. Like you've done a bunch of anthologies, and I know you're coming out with Reclaim the Stars soon, and also Vampires Never Get Old. So like, how does that like work in comparison to your like normal novels, where you're like an editor, like editing all of these different stories for this anthology?
So let me talk about Vampires Never Get Old, because that we just revealed the cover. That book comes out September 22nd. Vampires Never Get Old was an idea that my friend Natalie Parker and I, who's my co-editor, we came up with that idea when we were floating in a pool at a writer's retreat in the Alabama Gulf Shore. And I said, many cups in, many cups of many things in, you know what I miss? Vampires. And so everyone in that pool was like, yeah, we should do an anthology of like unexpected people writing vampire stories. Like that's why, Julie Murphy was there. So she was like, okay, but I have to be in it. And I was like, of course you would be in it, Julie Murphy. You're my queen. And so Natalie and I put it together. Natalie is super organized and fantastic. She's the author of a trilogy called Seafire, which is Fury Road, Mad Max Fury Road, but on like the open seas, right, with girl pirates. And once we were putting that together, we put together the list, and we were fortunate enough that a publisher wanted it. And because we were like, well, vampires are not that popular anymore. Why? They're still popular in everyone's hearts, but publishers don't want to take a chance on something that doesn't see sales numbers.
Yeah.
And so we were like, well, we'll just help usher vampires back in. But now Stephanie Meyer is also like, well, just in case you forgot about me.
And now it seems like it's the perfect time to like do vampires, because everybody wants to do vampires now. But you came before Midnight Sun with the anthology.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so so the thing about being an editor is that I love looking at story, and I love breaking down stories into their most common denominators, right? What is this about? Who is the audience for this? What is this character trying to do? What does this character even want? How is every single sentence in here working towards all of these goals? Because short stories, you have 4,000 words to tell a story. And we did give our authors a little bit more leeway. For instance, Mark Ashiro and Dhonielle Clayton stories are a little long, but that's fine because they're great and worth it. And I'm only shouting them out because they're my best friends. But the editorial side is almost, to me, is super fun. I don't have to do it every day, which is why I probably say that. But because I don't have to do it every day, I could just focus on these things. And so I'm really excited. We just revealed the cover. The stories are all so unique and so different. You know, we have a story by Rebecca Rowanhorse featuring a native character. And we have Julie Murphy wrote a fat vampire slayer. And so it's sort of like we gave all these authors the option to be like, you don't have to write about your marginalization, but they all included characters who share a background with them, because I think we have all been so thirsty, no pun intended, for stories like this. But we've only ever seen the Damons and the Angels and the Buffys, right? And so now it's time for a whole new generation of vampire stories. And I hope that this inspires, Natalie hopes this too, that it inspires a new break in the market for something that's not just the usual vampire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that too, because I can only imagine just with like the descriptions that everyone has shared of their stories, like it's so different and so like unique that I'm really excited to like read the whole anthology. So, and I'm sure a lot of people are too.
It's now on NetGalley and Edelweiss.
I'll definitely check that out then. So I know some authors like listen to music and like also create playlists for like their books. Do you do that at all? Do you like listen to any kind of music, and what do you usually like float towards when you listen to music if you write, while you write?
When I'm drafting, I listen to music with lyrics. So I'll make a vibes playlist, right? Like I have an adult novel coming out next year, I think it's still on schedule, and it's more magical realism, so but it's also set in Ecuador and in the United States and a little historical. And so a lot of the songs that I selected were like all boleros and ballads and songs that my grandmother would have listened to.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you can't just pick a song because it's time period appropriate. You have to like those jams, because then your writing flow just sucks. But I spend way too much time where I'm like, I'm going to make my playlist. Have you ever seen the Simpsons episode called The Book Job?
I don't think I have.
So please watch it.
I will.
It is my favorite episode of The Simpsons. I think it's season 23, maybe. I don't know. But it's called The Book Job. There's they do a spoof on Neil Gaiman and on the YA industry. And in it, Lisa Simpson is trying to write a book. And she goes, well, before I write my book, I need a playlist. But before I make my playlist, I have to organize my CDs. And so she's like every writer ever who I do use that moment as a procrastination tool. But I also like to think about, these are the lyrics that I'm going to write. And I don't want anything to inadvertently get into my book. So yeah. So I usually try to share my playlists. I should put them on my website, but I think that my handle is Zoraida Solo on Spotify. And so if you want to look at any of my playlists, it's usually something Latin or something rock and roll. So yeah.
I mean, I love author playlists. I love looking through them because it just kind of sees the thought process of everyone like throughout their writing of the book. So I always appreciate them. So I figured I would ask.
Yeah, it's fun. I like looking at other people's playlists because then I discover new artists, because I've been stuck with the same, not stuck, but like I listen to the same songs all the time because I have not updated my playlist since 2005 for the most part. Sometimes I do, but it'll be like, oh, I like what I like, and I'm kind of stubborn that way. When I move to the editorial process and I go to proof pages or something where I have to look really intensely at stuff, then I need background music. So I'll put on like the Star Wars score, or the Guardians of the Galaxy score is really good. And just go through movie scores that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So do you use any books on like writing, or like any advice books that you recommend to anyone?
No. I was talking about this with a friend, because I felt very frustrated with the amount of people of color who have written on writing books, and most of them are like, here's a memoir about my life, and also I wrote a book, right? And I don't want that. I want like an instructional book, a how to write a book. If I didn't have so many things on my plate, right, I would want to be like, oh, I should do that. But the one book that I do go back to, just to look at quotes from it, is Stephen King's On Writing. And I know that it's not for everybody, but I do appreciate his sincerity and his actual advice from books that exist. So he uses actual explanation, like actual excerpts. Big people like Big Magic. Is it Elizabeth Gilbert?
I think so. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
wrong.
So there's Big Magic, and Big Magic was interesting because I took away one thing from the whole book, and maybe that's fine, right? It's fine. We all take different things from different parts of a book. But the one thing that I took from her book was the idea that if something makes you unhappy, stop doing it. Right? Stop.
That's fair advice, yeah.
If writing makes you unhappy, stop doing it. I guess that goes for that. It's like the Marie Kondo, right? Of it all.
Yeah.
But for life instead of for your personal things. If your husband makes you unhappy, just get rid of it. I don't know. Some things you're stuck with, like your kid. I don't know. I'm a terrible person, but I think that writing advice can be a little prescriptive, and the only way to really learn how to do this is to read widely, because when you're reading widely, you sort of figure out where your voice belongs in the conversation of books, right? So all books are conversation. I think of my books as being in conversation with authors I love and grew up with, right? I think of the Brooklyn Brujas series being in conversation with Cassandra Clare's Mortal Instruments, because it's a magical New York, it's a magical city. I think of my romance books being in conversation with other romance books that exist, right? And so I think because we are in dialogue as artists, the best way to figure out where your voice belongs is to know what actually already exists. And that's something that's not something that a book about writing can teach you. That's just something that you'll learn as you become a reader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the conversation thing, because I know when I was reading Wayward Witch, it's like all about like Fae and everything. I was like, oh, I just finished like Holly Black's like Folk of the Air series. I'm like, this is perfect. Like right after to finish like that series, just to go into that, it was like perfect for me. So that's like really good to know that like you try to do.
Yeah, and I do think that Wayward Witch is in conversation with Holly's work, because it was so foundational to me growing up, right? Reading Tithe and waiting for Holly to update her live journal. I think was her website, and I loved that world, and I love this idea of fairies. And so my job was, what does fairy look like if it's an island in the Caribbean instead of an island somewhere else like New England? So yeah, so I think about that a lot.
Yeah. And finally, before we go to like audience questions, what are you reading right now, if you're reading anything?
I just finished Jade City by Fonda Lee.
Ooh.
It's I don't even know how to describe it properly because it's just, it blew my mind. It was so good. It's a high fantasy, but set in a metropolis as opposed to a historical fantasy. It's inspired by Asian cultures. I think it was somebody, one of the reviews called it like a kung fu epic. And I was like, yes, look at all these fighting scenes, and the way that she describes all the fighting is like so cool. It's about 4 siblings from this they're not crime families per se, but they are ruling families of a city, and they Jade is this is what you wear. It has magic, and there are some people who can harness the magic of this jade. And so it becomes these 2 clan wars between these two big families, and you go through all like the range of emotions of like figuring out who's going to live, who's going to die, who's going to do what you want them to do as a character. And the writing is beautiful, the world building is fantastic, and I can't wait. I just got Jade War, which is the sequel, and I think the 3rd book comes out in 2021. So I'm excited. That's a great book.
I have to get those then, because it's been on my list for a while, but I just haven't gotten around to it.
Me too. So book 1 came out 2017, and I've had it on my list forever, and then I listened to the audiobook, and I love the audiobook so much that I bought the paperback.
Yeah.
So that's how I know I love a book, is when I buy it twice.
Yeah. I only done that with a few books myself, so I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
So we have some questions from our viewers. So
Okay.
So Glow by Soph asks, what are your favorite aspects of being in the book industry?
The social aspects, because I love making connections with other writers. I love knowing their processes and knowing how their minds work and how they create stories. Other than that is like, I love the idea that I'm writing something that's going to reach a bunch of people. And I don't know who these people are. So all of a sudden my book just stops belonging to me and is now yours. And you're going to interpret it any way you want because you're not me and we have such different experiences. So that's terrifying, but also exhilarating.
I'm I mean, that's such a good answer. Yeah, I can't even say anything because I was just, wow, that's just like perfectly like explained.
Nobody's asked me that before.
Yeah. Okay, so our next question is from Shelly. Hi, Shelly, by the way. She asks, you write across categories, genres, and etc. When working on multiple projects at a time, how do you get into the mindset for each of them / switching between them?
In between books, I go to source materials, right? So before I start writing, I'm writing a new middle grade. My first middle grade comes out on June 2nd. It's called The Way to Rio Luna, and it's an adventure quest to find this mythical land called Rio Luna. And so I'm writing a new book. And the way that I prepare is that I research what the book is about, right? So this new middle grade is about cryptozoology and family and a van. it hasn't been announced, so I can't tell you all the details except for those details, and also that we sold it. But that's fine. I just break the rules all the time. Okay, back on track. Sorry, my mind just like goes really fast.
Totally okay.
So I prepare by doing research. So right now I'm reading about cryptozoology, and I'm reading all these books about mythical creatures and how I want to change it. Think about that. But I also know that I'm going to have to go back to Incendiary #2. And when I go back to it, because I know I have to return to it in a couple of weeks, I've been listening to audiobooks that are high fantasy. So I know some writers don't like to listen or read books in their genre while they're writing.
Yeah.
But I do. I think that I also watch movies in that time period. And I'll probably rewatch The Witcher to get into a fantasy mindset. And I'm gonna watch Rain and all of those historical shows just to like get into the feel of it. And books, I have books on historical Spain and medieval times. I wish I could go to a Ren fair because that would be awesome.
Yeah.
But I can't. So so for now I'll just do with what I've got.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that sounds great. I know that you got speaking of The Witcher, I know you got the candle recently.
Oh,
Is
yes.
that is that going to help you like get into the mood for like high fantasy?
I'm burning it right now. Yeah, it's called it smells like whetstone, forest, and mist, and it doesn't actually smell like any of those things. It smells like Tom Ford's Eau de Wood or something like that. I swear to God, it smells like just men's cologne, but in a good way.
Yeah.
So that I do think that there's something to be said about sensory emotions when you're writing. And so your sense of smell, because we do this all the time, right? We have to like make our desk look nice, right? That's visual. And then we have to like get our playlist, so that's audio. And we have to be comfortable, right? So that's like touch. But what about like your sense of smell, right? And so candles also like do help with that. Like scented candles I think are cool.
Yeah.
To like get you into some sort of weird. I know Rashi Chakshi, she was like, she had a tomato scented candle that helped her write one of her books, and I was like, that's hella weird, but okay, I get it.
Yeah. I never thought about like using candles in that way. That's interesting. I guess we have plenty of candles on our website, so like you can look at our selection.
Buy candles.
Yeah. I mean, candles are great in general, so hey, it's another use. I think that's all the questions that we have, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was
Sorry
such a
for the
wonderful
technical
time.
difficulties.
I mean, either way, it went well to me. But yeah, thank you everyone for coming to this talk. If you want to support the bookshop and also Zoraida's books, we have Incendiary and all her other books on bookshop.org on our webpage, and we also have them on our website too, some of her books. And yeah, thank you again for coming here and watching. And I hope you guys have a great day.
Bye, everybody. Talk to you later.